All right, here we go. College hoops coast to coast. My man Sweeney. We are going full episode version today, starting with the Sweeney 7. We're going to waste no time getting straight to it. Sweeney 7 in the building. Topping it off. What do we got?
Man, it was a busy week in college basketball. I was very busy, and one of the teams I was able to see is Wisconsin. We'll talk about Johnny Davis a little later on in our awards. I don't think it's a surprise that he'll be a player of the week after the performances that he put on this week. You know, he had 37, 26, and 19 in his 3 games this week. But, you know, Wisconsin goes 3-0. They get 2 road wins at Purdue and at Maryland. They beat Iowa as well as an NBA prospect in Keegan Murray and is really, really talented. And I just think when you watch this Wisconsin team, it's a great example of how great you can be when everyone is completely bought in to a larger vision, right? I think that's one of the things that is really, really obvious when you watch the Wisconsin Badgers is they have 4 guys on the floor at any given time who understand that Johnny Davis is the first option, and they aren't sulking in the corner that Johnny's going to take most of the shots. They're working their tail off to put Johnny in the best position and put their team in the best position to win. Whether that's Chucky Hepburn at the point of attack on defense, whether that's Brad Davison making tough shots, whether that's Tyler Wall in the post or Stephen Crowell and Chris Vogt giving fouls and toughness on the interior. I mean, every single guy, it feels like when you watch Wisconsin, is 1,000% bought in and locked into what they need to do. They have just a great togetherness and a great culture. It was something I saw in Vegas when I was with them at the Maui Invitational, and it is continuing to this week. And the Badgers are making a case to be in the Big Ten title conversation. I still don't know that maybe they have enough talent to stay up. But look, I mean, if you win at Mackey Arena, you can do anything in this conference. And Wisconsin did that this week. It was really, really impressive what they were able to do and execute a game plan on the road at Mackey. That was a really fun game to be at.
Yeah, what's the one thing you say with this Wisconsin team that may not be able to get them over the hump? Obviously, when you have that outlier player, and we kind of saw it a little bit if you go back to that Texas Tech team with Jared Culver, kind of had one outlier player. They made it all the way to the national championship game, almost won it. What is it about this Wisconsin team? Even if they can't win the regular season, what do you see their chances are even in the tournament?
I mean, Johnny's going to give them an opportunity in any game. That Purdue ball game, I walked in to the gym. I was with Jeremy Wu, SI's NBA draft guy, and kind of looked around and we said, look, the only way that Wisconsin has any chance of this game is if Johnny Davis goes and gets 30. He got 37 and 14. He had 3 assists. He probably should have had 6. I mean, he was filthy, right? So whenever you have that type of guy, you have a shot. I think the thing that kind of determines for me whether they can be a Big Ten champion, whether they can be a second weekend or even a Final Four team is the continued front court play from Stephen Crowell and Chris Vogt in particular. I thought Vogt gave him really good minutes. He's a 7-footer, 5th-year kid, transferred from Cincinnati in Northern Kentucky, plays like unbelievably hard. And I just felt like he gave them good minutes battling against Zach Edey. And they're going to deal with that all year in the Big Ten. Kofi Coburn, Zach Edey, Travion Williams, EJ Liddell, Trace Jackson Davis. The list goes on. I mean, I've definitely forgot like an All-American in that conversation. I mean, it's just that good. The centers in this conference, and I thought that Vogt and Crowell, who also is a little more skilled, not quite as tough. Those 2 guys, if they continue to play at the level that they played against Purdue, Wisconsin's gonna have a chance.
No doubt. We'll go to the next topic in the Sweeney 7. SEC race is shaping up. Big-time battles going on night in and night out. Upsets. Heavyweight fights, bouts. Talk a little bit about this league and what you see shaping up.
Man, you want to watch some high-level talent on the floor. Every time you watch an SEC game, you're watching, multiple future NBA players, athleticism, great coaching. I mean, this top of the league with Auburn, who is, I think, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and Jabari Smith, but also another potential first-rounder, Alan Flanagan, Walker Kessler, who's been outstanding, Wendell Green, the transfer from Eastern Kentucky, who's been explosive at the point, or in Alabama with J.D. Davison and Jaden Shackelford and those guys, or LSU, who got 2 huge wins this week against Tennessee and Kentucky. with their athleticism and length, with Tari Eason and Efton Reed and Alex Fudge. I mean, you just kind of go up and down the list in this conference. There's 5 or 6 teams I think that can win the league. I didn't even mention Kentucky, right? Isn't that crazy to think about? You go through and you say, think about all the NBA talent in this league, and I didn't come up with Kentucky in the top 3.
Right.
And that I think is a crazy statement of where this league is at right now. And certainly I think Kentucky is in the mix with Shibwe, and hopefully they can get Severe Wheeler back healthy. But Ty Washington had 17 assists this weekend. He's special at the point, this freshman. So this is a really talented, really, really loaded league at the top. And I just think there's a lot of parity and the competition level amongst a lot of these great coaches. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch down the stretch.
Who is the favorite in your mind as this is shaping up, and who is kind of that dark horse? Don't sleep on them because they could be as good as anybody.
I love Auburn. I think they're the favorite. I think Auburn's a top 5 team in the country. I think the last kind of month or so, ever since we had the changing hands AP poll #1 every week and Baylor finally took the reins, we said, there's 6 or 7 elite teams. And Auburn was never really in that conversation. Auburn would always be left in the next tier. Right. I think it's time to start talking about Auburn in there. I mean, Bruce Pearl can really coach ball. We certainly know that. And, as they get Flanagan back healthy, you've got a front court with Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler that I would argue is maybe the most skilled front court in the country. And Green is in great.
You said to jump in, arguably #1 pick in the draft as well. So anytime you have that, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Jabari is a special shooter. I talked to a coach who played against them, and he was like, man, there's no game plan for that. We defended him well, and he just elevates over you and drills a jumper. I mean, he's all 6'10". He's got these incredibly long arms. He got this high release on his jumper. He's special. So I like this Auburn team a ton. I think the team that I think people are forgetting about a little bit is Tennessee. I think the way that they guard, their experience level is really good. I think with Rick Barnes and Kennedy Chandler, that dynamic, I think it was always going to take time. I think come February, they're going to have a lot of trust between point guard and head coach, and that's going to allow this team to find another gear. I think Tennessee is going to be really special come February 15th, March 1st.
Yep, I love it. Let's go to number 3 on Sweeney 7, the flex scheduling mid-major. I don't even know what to call it, mid-major heaven matchup. Having all these matchups, you had the big one with San Francisco and Loyola Chicago in Salt Lake City. You also had an Iona St. Louis matchup. You just kind of got this COVID scheduling last minute, throw it together, and it's like, wait a minute, this is a legitimate quad 1 game right here. Let's tune into this. Talk about it.
I mean, the stories are just great with both of them. I mean, Loyola, we talked to Maura Morgan last week on this platform, and he was talking about the fact that they were looking for charters and had a commercial flight booked back so they had to play the game at noon because they had to get on a 5:30 flight back. Unfortunately, I can report that Loyola did find a charter to take them home from Salt Lake City, so they got to fly the PJ life after a huge win in Salt Lake, which was huge for them. I mean, then there's the Iona St. Louis game, which I mentioned. Travis Ford, the head coach at St. Louis, was interested in playing Iona because obviously he's a great relationship with Rick Pitino. Travis Ford played point guard for Rick Pitino back in the day. And Travis Ford texted Rick Pitino and didn't get a reply. Travis Ford found out that he had the wrong Rick Pitino number. Rick had changed his number and Travis didn't know about it. So eventually he got the right Rick Pitino number, got him on the phone and said, let's do this thing. And Rick said, we'll get on a plane right now. And they went on and played, and it was a fantastic game out of the wire, won in the final 10 seconds by St. Louis. So, I mean, these games are just great for college basketball. They're fun. The Loyola San Francisco game was just incredibly high-level basketball. I watched all 40 minutes of it. I was in heaven, man. I mean, it was like, again, I will never see the game like a guy who's coached basketball for 20 years, but you watch that game, you're like, that is a high-level basketball game with 2 really high-level teams that deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. A team like Loyola gets a huge statement resume win, and San Francisco gets a great experience and a great platform for a day. Yeah,
you can definitely see both teams as tournament teams. The game really could have went either way, even though Loyola did really separate in the end. And credit to them, they haven't played since the beginning of December. So they've been off for a long time. So they play as well as they did. San Francisco is really good, really big. I mean, really good. The part that surprised me, and I know we've actually talked to Todd Golden on this platform with Eli, and the size that they have inside. I mean, normally they're really skilled, but they don't have that kind of size, both offensively and defensively. So they have that offensive presence, and they have an outlier player in their elite guard as well. So, yeah, love that game. My question is, does the Iona game help those two teams to get an at-large, or is it just a great mid-major game that everyone can say, hey, I can see those teams in the tournament, but I don't know if they will be?
I think Iona has been really aggressive, knowing they needed a chance, right? You know, they have the Alabama win in their pocket. They don't have a ton else on their resume. Right? They have good wins, right? Like beating Hofstra is not easy. Beating Harvard's not easy. The other teams are going to win their leagues, but are they going to move the needle? Probably not, especially at home. So they needed one other than the Alabama game that they could hang their hat on. And, you know, they went out, they played a road game, which was, you know, going to be a quadrant one game if they could have won it. Unfortunately, they couldn't get it done. I still think if they rip through the MAC and go, you know, 19-1 or something like that, they'll have an opportunity. But it's hard. It really is. But it was worth the shot, right? Again, you can't lose by playing that ball game. And right. They had an opportunity to take it off the board. They would have played Seton Hall at Madison Square Garden. Seton Hall had COVID. Just unfortunate. So, and I think St. Louis has been really aggressive. They've been one of the teams that I talked to enough coaches trying to just kind of get a feel of, like, you know, you guys are looking for games. You guys are looking for games. And almost every mid-major I talked to who's looking for games, I said, yeah, we talked to St. Louis. Like, St. Louis has been aggressive and wanting to go play some people and prove themselves. And they're a team that will be in the mix at the top of the A10. I don't know if they're an at-large team, but they have some good wins, and they're an impressive group, especially given, you know, losing Javante Perkins preseason. We talked to Yuri Collins and Phil Forte on this program. I mean, they're really good. They're better than I expected, and that was a great win against a very tough Iona team. And how about this? Beating Rick Pitino in a short-term game planning contest, that says something. Put it that way.
Yeah, the former player beating the mentor.
That'll be a memory Travis Ford doesn't forget soon. I'm gonna.
There's no question. And credit to Travis Ford has been known as a recruiter sometimes, as a Scott Drew, but doesn't get credit for being as good of a coach as he is. To lose your best player hands down early on and be doing what they're doing. No one expected that except the people in that locker room and in that program. So credit to them on that. We'll go next on the Sweeney 7. Memphis, the hype early. Then there was a little bit of the what's going on. Then they get the big win. Then they kind of stumble out of the gates a little bit in conference play. Now they quietly won 3 straight. What's your thoughts on Memphis and where they stand now?
Look, I mean, the American is wide open. Certainly, you know, you don't want any time. You don't ever want a conference to be decided by injury, but the injury to Marcus Sasser at Houston has opened the door for Memphis. And after losing their opener to Tulane, they've looked really good. And, you know, they've started to pick it up on the defensive end, which is obviously a huge deal for that program. It's something that, you know, they rely upon, but they're also scoring the ball. I mean, look at their last 5 since that Alabama game. That was a huge win for them. They put up 92 points against Alabama. They put up 84 on Tulane. They put up 82 on Wichita State on the road. They struggled against Tulsa, but Frank Haith knows how to make a game a grind. We'll put it that way. And Cincinnati, they put up 87 on a Wes Miller team, and Wes Miller's teams coach defense. So, look, they've been trying to figure it out. I mean, Imani Bates has been injured. Jalen Duran's been injured. DeAndre Williams has been injured. They've had COVID issues, but they've just needed different guys to step up. And, you know, today was Josh Minot and Tyler Harris, who made big plays late in the ballgame, and it was enough for them to get a huge win. So Memphis still, I feel the path to an at-large is a narrow one. They're going to have to do some work in the AAC, but I think the important thing for them right now is just play good basketball, and everything else will sort itself out. And right now they're playing much better basketball. Yeah,
you mentioned the Sasser injury, which is super unfortunate, but also Trayvon Mark is also injured, which is another elite level guard on their team. So Houston being not at full strength, we've seen before. I mean, you look at last year's Final Four team, the preseason player of the year. I think people forget Caleb Mills was preseason player of the year, didn't play for him, and they make the Final Four. So Kelvin Sampson knows how to overcome it, but when you lose 2 of them, it makes it a lot harder. And I think this Memphis team, being as young as they are, obviously we know Larry Brown's a Hall of Fame coach. Obviously Penny has this greater connection with those guys and knows what he's doing. Their staff can't be unquestioned. Cody Topper, Rasheed Wallace, but you got all these young guys and they're together new, it just takes some time. And I think everybody, the hype wanted it to happen right away. And we've seen that in college basketball before, whether it's the Michigan days or some of these Duke teams that have had these elite freshmen or even a Kentucky team. So it takes a little bit of time. I think they're trending upward at the right time, and hopefully they can keep that going because it is a wide open conference play this year. Let's go to the next one on the Sweeney 7. Some history made. Antoine Davis, he looks like his own version of college basketball, Steph Curry. Doesn't do it the exact same way. His dad's the coach. He's an elite level coach himself. He's done a ton of winning and Houston products. So I gotta give shout out to H-Town. I've coached against this kid. I've seen him play back when he was a sophomore in high school. And he was a scrawny little thing that's like there's no way he's gonna be a big time player. And he's just a self-made guy. I don't know if there's a harder working player in the gym than this young man in the country. So he scores 39, all-time leading scorer at Detroit. Talk about Antoine Davis.
Yeah, he passed up Rashad Phillips for that honor, and I think fittingly he did so by scoring 39 points and leading his team to a big victory. He also had 6 assists in that game. Look, I think one of the things with him has always been, he's so dynamic and so gifted as a scorer. Can he lead Detroit to something substantive on the winning front? And they started 0-6 this year, and you said, okay, maybe again it's gonna be the problem, but they started their schedule with 9 straight road games, and they started to turn around. Now they're 3-0 in the league. Davis is a special scorer, proves it every single time he goes out on the floor. They've got athleticism, some excellent guards around Davis as well. I just think it's a great honor, a great achievement, and look, a kid who could play anywhere in the country. If he wanted to go in the portal and look around, guarantee you, list off name a big school, they'd call Antoine Davis. But he's got a loyalty to his dad and wanting to finish what they started there. And they had a real opportunity last year to go to the NCAA tournament. They were right there in the conference tournament, couldn't quite get it done. And he's certainly hoping that they can get over the hump because he's a special career and just one of those guys that deserves an opportunity on that biggest stage. He's special.
Yeah, you mentioned about Johnny Davis earlier, kind of giving him a chance in any game. Antoine Davis has that kind of ability in this league. So hopefully the conference play, now that they're there in conference play, they can start playing more like opponents and kind of get that thing rolling like they did last year in conference play. But man, it's been awesome to see him do this since the minute he's got on campus. Now, obviously, your dad's the coach. He originally signed with University of Houston, so he would have been doing it with Kelvin Sampson. Dad gets the job at Detroit, goes with dad. And, shout out to Rashad Phillips, who was a bucket back in the day himself. The young fella, he passed the torch to the young fella, and he's earned it. It's kind of a cool moment, similar to what we just saw with Steph in the NBA level, kind of seeing the OGs kind of pass the torch, Ray Allen to him. So shout out to Rashad Phillips on that with Detroit. Going to the next one, Conference USA. Got a little bit of madness out there. A former league I used to coach in. It is going down in Conference USA. 1 minute, the heavyweights fight in North Texas and UAB. UAB comes out on top. Next game, they go play Rice. They come out on the bottom. Talk a little bit about this league and what you see from Conference USA.
I think we discussed it last year. One of the first times we did this show, is like this league is so challenging and uniquely challenging because of certainly the talent 1 through 14, but also the travel and everything that you navigate. Going from literally, Virginia to West Texas, and I think this year in particular, there's just such great parity. And UAB, they go on the road to Denton. They win at North Texas. That's a huge win. You say, okay, now you're the favorite in the league. Certainly North Texas, the standard bearer in this conference after winning an NCAA tournament game last year. UAB with Andy Kennedy is all the talent in the world. And then you turn around 2 days later, you have to go to Rice and play a really well-coached team under Scott Piero with great guards who can light it up from deep. And kid Travis Evie goes for 25 and beats you. And I think it's just a great reminder of how hard it is in this conference. And it's going to make it harder for UAB. I think there was a lot of at-large buzz after that North Texas win. The Rice loss makes it harder. But, certainly I hope we can find a way to get 2 teams in this conference, whether it's UAB or Texas, Louisiana Tech. Get an at-large bid in this league in addition to obviously the conference champion, because this league is so deep. Western Kentucky is very talented. They beat Louisville. Charlotte has, been a little bit cooler lately, but had a nice start to the year, has some very good guards. FAU is 8-6. FIU got off to a really nice start. They've won 10 games this year after winning only 2 last year. Everybody's improved, and I think it's just a fun league to watch every year. I think if you're not watching Conference USA basketball, you're missing out right now, man. It's really fun.
Yeah, in the last year to really watch this version of Conference USA with all the different realignment stuff going on. But La Tech's another team that you mentioned that's in there with Kenneth Lofton. They were the regular season champs on one side. I know they broke them up. Kind of hard to keep up with how they do the divisions now. But, deep league. Really hard travel in this league. Really good basketball coaches in this league. And, it'd be amazing to see Conference USA get 2 bids, similar to back in the day when it felt like that was happening on the regular. So we'll move to our last Sweeney 7, number 7. San Diego State dominates the highly rated, undefeated Colorado State team at home at San Diego State. They've been the pride of the conference since San Jose State has. Colorado State jumping in there this year, having a spectacular special year. They've had a really weird time off, haven't played a lot of games. Similar to Loyola Chicago, their response wasn't quite the same. Talk a little bit about this game.
Yeah, it's tough coming off a long pause. They were 26 days or so without playing a game, and I think you thought, knowing how hard it is to play at Viejas, you were in that league, you understand as good as anyone how challenging it is to win that building, and they just got punched in the mouth early and didn't respond. Look, the final score is not necessarily reflective of. This was a closer game until the final. If this game was. It was only a 12-point game with 10 minutes to go. It was not a blowout until the final 10 minutes, and San Diego State really poured some gasoline on the fire. But look, a good reminder that San Diego State's here to stay and they're not going anywhere. And obviously Brian Dutcher does a great job. Matt Bradley, their guard, or their wing, is a really good player. And I think it's taken them some time to figure things out on the offensive end, but they will guard you and they will make it difficult for you to score. And they hold this really talented Colorado State offense with 2 superstars in Roddy and Stevens to 49 points. It says quite a bit. Yeah, it says a lot. And at the end of the day, it's one game for Colorado State. We know how good they are. We know how talented they are. And these 2 teams have to play again in Colorado. I think the good part about the Mountain West is that you do get these opportunities. They have been a 2-bid league here recently for a good stretch now. And you don't want to see necessarily the score discrepancy, but you almost want to see a San Diego State beat a Colorado State so that you can say, okay, legitimately, you may be able to get 2 teams in. And last year, I think there was even that conversation of getting 4 in at one point in time. I think it ended up being 3 that got in. Is that correct? It was just the 2 because Boise and Colorado State got – but there's a real path to 3, I think, again. You talk about Colorado State, San Diego State, Utah State will be in that mix, Obviously, Boise State is now top 50 in KenPom. I think that's kind of flown under the radar. Leon Rice has done a really, really good job with this team. They've won, I think, 7 straight into a COVID pause. So excited about this Boise team, really am. Yeah, and that Utah State team just came off a good win, and they play Colorado State Wednesday. So this league, kind of as we talked about a lot of mid-major leagues, this league is as good as any with multiple bids on the table. And congratulations, San Diego State, getting that big win this week. Let's go to high major team of the week. Talk about a big upset. Miami pulls it off against the Duke Blue Devils. Talk about this Miami team. Man, I left them for dead. I really did. Thanksgiving weekend, you open it up. They lose by 16 to Dayton. Dayton was coming off loss to UMass Lowell, Lipscomb, and Austin Peay. Since then, they have been lights out. Absolutely lights out since that Thanksgiving tournament. They won at Penn State, which at the time was like, all right, Penn State's not that good. They beat Clemson in an early ACC game. You said, okay, well, it doesn't matter. Clemson's only in an IC team. And then since then, start ACC play after that, they beat NC State, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and then finally on Saturday, this huge road win at Cameron, one of the biggest wins of the Jim Larinaga era. Look, these guards are special. They have 3 kids, and Charlie Moore, Isaiah Wong, and Cameron Auguste, who could score with anyone in the country. And then you add in the length and the athleticism they have around them, and you're going to have an opportunity to be in the mix. And I think with this Miami team, the defense has always been the question mark. Would they get enough stops? They haven't so far this season, but against Duke, they did a really nice job and slowed down Wendell Moore in particular, who has been a revelation, a huge part of what Duke has done. He had 6 turnovers in the game. They just bothered him, disrupted him. Miami only turned it over 5 times. Duke turned it over 17 times. That was a huge reason for the win. So in a ACC where everyone says Duke and everybody else, and I still believe it is, Miami now making a move to be an NCAA tournament team with a 5-game winning streak to start ACC play.
Yeah, it does feel like it's one of those years where people have talked about the ACC as if how many teams can they really get in this year. But with teams like Miami stealing a win like that changes the whole conversation all of a sudden. It's like, wait a minute, the ACC is and that's kind of what happens in the Power 5 level and leagues like this. You're not surprised, but hats off to them because definitely I think a lot of people, you weren't the only one to count this Miami team out for dead. But you did mention the Texas guard that has a lot to do with it, Cam McGusty. You got to shout out to Texas.
How is Cam McGusty still in college?
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, man, I'm pretty sure when I was at Lamar, Cam McGusty was in Houston playing on a team when I was recruiting his teammates. Like, that guy's still in college. It's amazing. All right. High major player of the week. We've talked about him. We got to talk about him again. And let's even talk about the draft board status. Obviously, you get some access to some of these things being with Sports Illustrated. Where does he really fit in the conversation of players in the country that the Purdue game probably changed his whole trajectory? 37 and 14 rebounds in that game, in a win. Talk about Johnny Davis, high major player of the week.
So my colleague Jeremy Wu had put Johnny Davis as the number 5 player in the class in December. And that was early compared to everybody else. Everybody else kind of had a late lottery or even outside the lottery. He kind of jumped on the wave early, and people were like, is that intel or is that Jeremy really liking Johnny Davis? And I think it's obvious that Jeremy was early on an island that a lot of people are going to be wanting access to. Obviously, that Purdue game was special. There was a lot of NBA people in that gym, and a lot of powerful people. Like Sam Presti was at that game. Obviously, the primary decision maker. I don't know if he's a GM or president or what he is of the Oklahoma City Thunder, but there were a lot of big decision makers there to see arguably the 2 best guards in terms of NBA draft prospects in college basketball, and Jaden Ivey and Johnny Davis. And Johnny completely outdueled him, and I think he's solidified himself into the conversation to be certainly a top 10 pick, potentially a top 5 pick. I mean, look, I think he's going to be an NBA all-star level shooting guard. I think he's going to be in the mix to be the number 3 pick. I think Jabari Smith and Paolo Banchero are going to be 1 and 2, but would it stun me if he jumped Chet Holmgren and wound up at 3? I wouldn't be stunned. I think he's that good. He just, beyond the ability to score and the ability, the complete package and the body and the tools, he is just completely unflappable. He is so fun to watch in the sense of like, you're in one of the toughest environments in college basketball, and Johnny Davis looks like he's just like in an empty gym with headphones on, like just shooting. He's just completely locked in, completely steadfast, and he is just a tough bucket getter and a fun kid to watch. So easy guy to root for, and you're certainly deserving of these honors this week.
Yeah, is there a player you could say recently that he kind of reminds you of in the college level that maybe some people maybe weren't thinking was as good as they are, and then they are having that success in the league? Is there anybody that sticks out to you?
I don't think he shoots it quite like Devin Booker, but I think there's a comparison there in terms of think about what Devin did as a freshman at Kentucky coming off the bench on that that like hockey line substitution team. Right. He averaged like 9 points a game and like left, and it was a top 15 pick, and everyone was like, Devin Booker, like, well, he came off the bench, and now he's maybe the best shooting guard in the NBA.
It's Devin Booker.
Yeah, everybody was high. So I think Johnny has a similar career path in the sense that last year's on a Wisconsin team that had 5 senior starters and 7 seniors overall, and he had to find his place and was a really good role player and came back. Obviously, was not in the same draft position as Devin was, but came back and was the alpha dog, and it's just been special in that role. I mean, he's just a killer, and I love watching him play. I think he could have a Devin Booker type. I don't think he'll be quite as good as Devin. That's putting a lot of pressure on the young man, but he is I think he has the ability to be one of the premier shooting guards in the sport of basketball anywhere in the world.
Yeah, he kind of goes back for me a little bit of let's see if this one brings a bell for you. Old school Brandon Roy from Portland. He kind of has that kind of vibe, kind of real smooth. It's easy for him. People forget how good Brandon Roy was before his career got ended. He was a bucket in his own right. So that would be my minor comparison to that one. So we're going mid-major now. We're going mid-major team of the week. The Chi-Town's own Chi City. This is low-key your squad. It's your city, so I got to give them their love. And it's our boy. We had Amaro on last week, and Coach Drew is the youngest head coach in the country. Super impressive what these guys have done. That's my first time watching a full game of theirs, and the level of obviously Porter left an incredible culture. We all know that. They went to the Final Four, and they deserve so much credit for all that they did during that time. But he's not there, and Krutwig is not there. But their offense is – their defense is elite, but their offense, I mean, they're putting some problems and they're putting some buckets. They put a lot of pressure on you in a lot of different ways, and they can score in so many ways. Their level of execution and pace of play, I was super impressed with two offensive-minded teams that are good defensive teams. The level of execution after being off that long, I think Coach Drew Valentine showed the entire world on this little smaller stage that, I mean, he's as good of a coach as there is as a young coach. I mean, he was elite, and Todd Gold is elite as well. So I don't want to take anything away from him, but it was just super impressive what Loyola Chicago was able to do.
Yeah, so I think they earned the Team of the Week honors because of that win, obviously, and the at-large implications for them because of it, and the way that they played, and the circumstances in which they had to play that game. Flying in super late, they'd never been in the gym. They played at noon, and then they still put up. They're coming off this long pause, and they still win. But then to avoid the letdown game against Bradley this weekend, they played yesterday. Bradley is one of the better teams in the Valley. They were down by 15 in the second half and came back and won that game. And I think, again, it just speaks to the poise that this team, because they've been in those moments, has, and the poise that Drew Valentine has as the head coach, and the belief that he has in his guys. Like, just there's no panic. And the way that they navigated that's those late game situations yesterday was really impressive. You talk about, a guy who is more than a recruiter. You want proof of that with Drew Valentine? You can put on the tape of all 80 minutes they played this week, or 85 because they played overtime yesterday. But go watch the set that they ran to get, I believe, a game to take a 3 to take the lead in overtime. I think Loyola tweeted it. If you go look for it, they ran a really fantastic hammer set to get a wide open look for Lucas Williamson. He drilled it as you would expect because he's a senior and been through made a million big shots in his career, but. You want to talk about more than a recruiter. The way that they run stuff on both ends of the floor is really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, high level. Normally you see a lot of times a guy gets kind of pegged as like, oh, he's an offensive guy, or he's a defensive guru, or I mean, Drew Valentine. I'm just so impressed at this early year one how good they are on both sides of the ball. And like you said, it's not just because of the players. The level of execution and things being ran up, the way that they play in a flow, extremely impressive. I know we could talk about more of this, but extremely impressive to see what they did. So we're going to go player of the week next. Mid-major player of the week. We're going back to the Sun Belt, Arkansas State. Talk a little bit about what you've seen from this young man.
Yeah, Norchad Omier. I mean, he was a guy. I actually got a text from a coach today in the league. Or might have been yesterday. I don't know. The days all blend together when you've been watching as much basketball as I have lately. And he was like, man, you need to watch this kid. He is like Paul Millsap. He is unbelievable. And I put on a little tape to confirm because I didn't watch their games this week. He had a couple decent ball games. Just a couple. I believe he had 29 and 17 in their loss this week. And they said, let's win one. And Mr. Omier had 24 and 13 in a win over Louisiana Monroe. They played 2 road games. You get a split on the road. I know B can say as a coach, you play a 2-game road swing, you win one of those, you feel pretty good on the bus ride home.
Oh, you feel great. You feel
great. And he is a special kid. Only a sophomore, one of the best, if not the best rebounder in the country. And glad we can give him some love because he is as energetic and as active on the glass and on the interior as anyone. Blocks shots at a high level. Really good defensive player, and just a superstar that Mike Balado and that staff found.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, COVID-wise, he's really just a freshman, if I'm not mistaken. Played a year, but gets the year back because he's – anyway, neither here nor there.
Technically, yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so too. He is for perspective on his rebounding ability, his offensive rebounding rate, which is another Ken Palm stat. He's 18 nationally in the country. His defensive rebound rate, he's number 8 nationally in the country. So just gives you a feel of what a high level. This is not an accident with this young man. He has that ability in him, and obviously a young player. So, man, they got a real gem. Their staff did a good job, and credit to him. I hope he keeps going in that. We're going to go from player to player. We're going HBCU next, going to Coppin State. I know your boys over at All Facts Media. I know they're probably plugging their guy over there. I love to see it. HBCU in the building. Talk about Coppin State, and they came out with a big win as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wrote the big story. I hope you guys go and read it if you have the time. It's pinned on my Twitter, so you can find it pretty easily, about everything that this team has been through. And, right after I finished the story, they went on COVID pause. And this was their first game back. They played South Carolina State on the road, as they have been on the road really all season long. And this man, Tyree Corbett, goes for 23 and 22 to carry him to victory. He has been a great addition for them, a transfer from another HBCU in Alcorn State. He's a big-time athlete. He can handle the ball. He's very, very skilled. He can stretch the floor. He's a fun player to watch. And this team with Corbett and Zarzuela and Nenda Tark, I mean, look, their record, I believe now is 2-14. But let me tell you, I think this is a Coppin State team that will be in the mix in the MEAC. I think Howard's a good club. I certainly think Norfolk State is in the mix. We talked about them on the program before. Obviously, North Carolina Central and Lavelle Moton, they're always in the conversation. But I don't think anyone should be surprised if Coppin State is around that top with Zarzuela and Tyree Corbett and Nenda Tark and some of the talent they have.
Yeah, Zarzuela I know personally from recruiting him back in the day to UTEP, and he's a family member extended of mine. But, man, Juan Dixon's found a way, even though they've had all this adversity. I mean, they just kind of – I don't know if they almost thrive on it. Obviously, he has the ultimate national championship pedigree, shared a title last year for one side of their conference. So wouldn't be surprised if they're in that conversation again with the kind of firepower they've done a good job with. Ending the show with our last award, the HBCU Team of the Week. We have a co-Team of the Week. Chicago State Division I got a really big win this week in conference play. We can talk about that program and how much uphill battle. You talk about an uphill battle program. They may have the most uphill battle of anyone, arguably. So got to give them their flowers. They're already at 5 wins this season. I don't know if they've had a conference win in a while, not one of this quality at least. So that's a big one. And then Paul Quinn College is 13-0, if I'm not mistaken on what I have. One of 3 teams in NAI that's still undefeated. They're number 1 in the kind of small college country polls. 13-0 is their best record start since 1998. And they were preseason picked last, 12 out of 12 in their league, and they're undefeated. So shout out to Coach Brandon Espinosa and NAI. They made a lot of buzz. They went big time viral with their new court. If you haven't seen it, you have to look it up. Paul Quinn College there in Dallas, near and dear to my heart because it's Dallas. That's home for me. Hardly home, but always repping. But Paul Quinn has not been good traditionally. So shout out to Mike Sorrell, the president, for his hire in Brandon Espinosa. Coach Espinosa also works with Jermaine O'Neal's Drive Nation. So he's gotten tied in. They're having events on their court now. They're making Paul Quinn a cool place in Dallas. So got to give shout out to them for the home team. But I'll let you talk about Chicago State. You're right there in the city. You know about them well.
Yeah, two great stories. But, Chicago State, I mean, look, Joe Gillian took over late. It's a really, really, really hard job. They had not won more than 4 Division I games in a season since, I believe, the 2014 season, 2013-14. That's a long time.
Right.
They got their 5th Division I win on Saturday against Cal Baptist. Great win, 58-56. Another kind of cool thing about this, I mean, Cal Baptist is 10-4, so it's cool no matter what to win a good team.
No
but
doubt.
There were a handful. I think I was told 2 at minimum, but I believe a few more as well who didn't register officially. NBA scouts in the building because of Taron Armstrong, the Australian point guard for Cal Baptist, who's really special.
Yeah.
He's going to have a great future. But look, is there anyone on Chicago State that's going to play in the NBA? Probably not. Although one of their kids, come from a couple of years ago, Trayvon Palmer, just got one of those 10-day hardship deals.
Right.
Regardless, look, those kids got to play on an incredible stage in front of guys who have real power, and you never know what playing a big game in that game could mean for a kid, whether it's a referral to an agent or referral to an overseas contract that help these guys, extend their careers and feed their families. And I just think it's cool, and it's everything that college basketball is about, to have kind of an upset like that and a great exposure moment for these kids, and something that they'll remember for a long time. And certainly we salute Coach Gillian for getting things going there. It was a challenging job to take over, and he's certainly making the best of it so far.
Yeah, absolutely, and got the job, and one of the, arguably, I mean, if you had to rank them all in the country, it's definitely one of the hardest jobs in the country. And they started out the year winning. I don't know the last time they had a winning record. They won 2 in a row to start the year. They went 2-0 to start the year. They're at 5 wins, getting the conference win early, so you're not buried in 0 and whatever at the bottom. So just love the way this team is competing. Not an easy job, not an easy situation. You just got to give full credit to that. And then shout out to the NAI level Paul Quinn College. Those are the awards. That's the Sweeney 7. What do we have this week to look forward to as we close out the show? Final thoughts, any games that you have pegged, circled, that you just really want to see happen?
Honestly, I mean, it's been such a whirlwind. I've been on the road the past week. I was just getting through this week, and I got to look ahead to next week. I've got one game I'll mention. I'm going to go to Purdue versus Illinois on Martin Luther King Day. That's going to be a really cool game. Illinois is likely to be undefeated going into that ball game in the Big Ten. They've been really, really good lately. Obviously, Purdue is in the mix. So I'm looking forward to that. Got a few games on the dock. I'm going to go to Valpo Loyola on Tuesday. I'm going to go to Northwestern Maryland on Wednesday. Seton Hall, Marquette on Saturday. And I know Milwaukee's playing that day, so I'll swing up that day and see Pat Baldwin as well. They get just a 2 for a little Milwaukee doubleheader. Maybe get a beer up in Wisconsin while we're there. Might be a good time.
I like it.
So look, it's been fun. It's great to get back on the road. And I was a busy man this week, so I watched a lot of basketball and saw a lot of great teams. So I met a lot of fun people that I knew from Twitter or wherever. And that's the beauty of this business is you just run into people and run into scout. I ran into someone on Wednesday that I met for the first time on Wednesday, and then completely unknowing, we run into each other Saturday at another game. I mean, it's just
how about that?
College basketball, baby.
Gotta love it. Yeah, there's the best part about this time of year. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but there's so many high-level conference games. And although the preseason is great because you get to see teams match up and heavyweights and teams that don't normally play each other and MTEs and tournaments and all that, conference play, when you play against teams that are familiar, you get to kind of, I mean, the rivalries, the history. I just love this time of year more than anything. So I think there's nonstop almost every single day. And you don't know who's playing and who's not, unfortunately, with these times with COVID. But definitely some high-level games to be played. I think anytime number 1 is playing, it's always circled. So Baylor played Iowa State. That was the big matchup of undefeateds on the road. Baylor proves how good they are still. And I think they got a tricky matchup at home against Texas Tech, the best defensive team in the league. I'll circle that one just to kind of talk about that. And then, outside of that, any funny stories for us, Kev? You got any funny stories? All these travels now. Give us one before we close out the show. Funny Kevin Sweeney story of the new role, the new travel, just to be able to go to games again. I mean, that in itself.
That's a good question. I need a good. How about this? How about funny ways that college basketball can operate. So I'm at the prep event, the La Lumiere prep event on Friday. So it got great teams: Montverde, IMG, La Lumiere, Oak Hill, Wasatch Academy, Sunrise Christian. It was great event. And we're sitting there having a good time. They got a nice little media setup.
Okay.
Food. And for the coaches as well, they got like meatballs and stuff. So I'm sitting there. We're in the second row. Me, Jeremy Wu, a couple other guys. And sitting in the row in front of us is Bino Ranson, the assistant coach of the Paul.
Yes.
And Bino had some meatballs. Put his plate down and looked down and realized he had a little sauce on his sock from leaving the meatball plate. So he had and my buddy Jeremy goes to me. He said it was kind of like Kurt Schilling's bloody sock game in the 2004 World Series. Little sauce on the sock. So yeah, Bino was on the road recruiting, and then back on the grind to a game on Saturday. They were very well prepared for Villanova. So that's the grind coaches are on. I respect anybody who's out on the road this time of year because you guys got enough to do just to go win a game. So
no doubt, but you got to win the next game with those recruits, and at an event like that, you better be there.
There's a lot of talent there. A lot of talent.
Yeah, the good thing about it, hopefully, he has some pants on. Pull the pants down over that sock. Nobody even knows. Good to go. Well, another great episode. Thank you guys for joining us. You know where to find us. Look forward to next week. Kevin, be safe. Be great. Be great at it.